This week's Torah is being sponsored Le'ila Nishmas Yecheskel Ezra ben Gavriel Yaakov, who was nifta this past week. In this schus of him and his family, that they're constantly trying to be marbitz Torah, he should have an Ila Neshama, and the family should only know of B'suras Tovus. This week is also being sponsored on more of a Simcha Deka for Shimon Chaim HaKoyen Ben Chena Bas Sheva, Yish Bezoichet to a Zivik Hagen Bekarev, along with Simchas and Refuas and the whole Mishpacha. When we come to the Parshat of Noach, so we find something fascinating. And the Rambam tells us, along with the other Mefarshim, Merumas in the Psukim of how the Gemara darshans them, it says, V'hishchis kol basar. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to destroy the world because it came to a point of total hashchasa. According to some Mefarshim, it wasn't just the humans, it was the animals relating to other animals in ways that were not b'derech hateva. And according to even others, even the crops were interbreeding with each other in ways which obviously was never possible. And the Mefarshim ask, how is this possible? That v'hishchis kol basar, I can understand by humans. So you have bechira, we have a choice. We can decide one way or another to corrupt, or of course to do the positive, to benefit the world, and to do things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is proud of. But animals have no bechira. How is it possible that it affected even the animals doing things which are not in their instinct, not the way they were pre-programmed? And to a point where even plants and vegetation, they were a cause of corruption. They were causing ashchas in the world. How is this shaykh? How is this possible? Shaveli Lapiyan tells us a yisoid throughout our entire lives. There was once a hospital. It was an older hospital. They did a study because something was bizarre. People came in with illnesses on the range of a 2 or a 3, from a 1 to a 10, and walked out with their 7 or 8. They walked in with the flu or pneumonia and walked out critically ill. And what was going on here? And this wasn't one case, it wasn't 2 cases. These were tens and tens of cases. Until they did a major study and they found out that in the walls of the hospital, because of how old it was and the illnesses and the diseases and the germs that were collected in those walls, affected anyone who walked in there. And if you were already vulnerable and susceptible to illness as those who were sick walked in, they just got sicker. Many a time, when we go into areas or places which are already arangezapt, which is already full of these germs, of these illnesses, so if we're already vulnerable to begin with and we're susceptible, we're just going to pick them up. That was the idea of hishchis kol basar. There was such ashchas in the world, there was such corruption in the world. Because of the way the human beings with their bechira chose, they caused these germs, they caused these diseases to be prevalent in the entire world, to a point where physically it caused animals to deviate from the norm. And where physically it caused crops and vegetation to deviate from what they were programmed to be doing. It caused a hashchasa of kol basar of the entire world, an absolute corrupt destruction, to a point where HaKadosh Baruch Hu realized the walls just have to come crashing down. There's no way to sustain such a world if there was such ashchasa of what the humans started. But that's the negative, and that's why Noach had to start the world afresh. But could you imagine for the positive? The Chazon Ish was once walking with a Talmud of his to the outskirts of Bnei Brak, which is today Rechav Rebbe Kiva, which is in the heart of it all. And he walks to the end of the street, and he stops for a moment, he turns to the Bachar, and he says, there were 2 Bachrim just sitting here learning. He says, what are you talking about? He goes, I can feel it in the air. There was divrei Torah that 2 Bachrim were just talking right here. He, of course, had to be in his bar, and he found out that just a few moments ago, there were 2 Bachrim who were learning there. Chazon Ish felt that. He was sensitive to that Kedusha. So instead of talking about the negative, we could focus on the positive. Instead of breeding germs and more diseases and more illnesses, we could promote antibodies. We could promote Kedusha. Every word of Torah, every proper davening, every ma'aseh chesed that we're doing, we're knocking out the germs. We're spreading the Kedusha. We're spreading the positivity. We could also start the world afresh. Instead of having the hashchasas of kol basar, which let's hope that was the last time we ever had it, we could realize our power, our koyach, as Yidden, as Torah true Yidden, living for the Rebbeinu Shalom, doing what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. And we could start the world mechadash. We could start the world anew with positivity, with more kedusha, and knocking out all those germs that others already put in. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bench all of us to give us that koyach, that siyata d'shmaya, that sensitivity to feel that kedusha, and that ability to promote it to as many as we possibly can. Have a wonderful Shabbos.